Speaker, it is my pleasure to rise in the House today to speak on Bill 138, our government's plan to build Ontario Together Act. As a parent of 5, the top 3 lessons I taught my 5 children were: always be respectful, be thankful for what you have, and honesty is the best policy. In the way of life skills, perhaps the most important skill we can teach is how to manage money. Budgeting, as we've all come learn in our journey to adulthood, is the most basic tool of money management. Yet despite all that change since many of us were kids today, 79% of parents report working to teach their children the same lessons they learned growing up, like learning to live within your means, essentially spending less than or at least equal to the money you bring in each month or year. The idea of living within your means is not a partisan thing. It's a reality for all of us. Hear, hear. Regardless of our income, human nature has always wanted more. That's why we're tempted by credit cards, loans, and even emergency funds that allow us to buy more things than our income normally allows. It's no different for government. Every individual and family in Ontario has to balance their books, and so too should the government. Yet successful governments have gotten in the habit of mortgaging our kids' and grandkids' future to keep the lights on today. That's exactly what the previous government did. During their 15 years in office, they drastically increased its spending and doubled Ontario's debt. Shameful. Thanks to the Liberals, Ontario now has twice the debt of California and more debt than Greece. On your monthly credit card bill, if you spend more than you can afford to pay back, the result is interest. Crippling interest that over time eats away at more and more of your disposable income. It's no different for the government. For 2019-2020, the Finance Minister estimated that Ontario will pay nearly $12.9 billion in interest payments. That's $12.9 billion. Crazy. That's 20% of the healthcare budget, almost half the education budget, and over $1 billion more than the province spends on post-secondary education and job training. Our plan to balance the budget by 2023-24 is balanced and prudent, and it allows us to invest now in vital public services, build for the future, and get our fiscal house in order, Madam Speaker. As a result of our progress in reducing the deficit, our government is investing an additional, and I say additional, $1.3 billion in critical public services like healthcare and education. Madam Speaker, in just over 2 weeks, it will be Christmas Day. And if you've turned on the television, radio, or opened your mailbox lately, you'll know that the season is in full swing. Now, there are many versions of the Charles Dickens classic, A Christmas Carol, streaming on online services, you know, the ones where 3 ghosts haunt Ebenezer on Christmas Eve. This got me thinking of the ghosts of fall economic statement passed. It was November 26, the Finance Minister said that, and I quote, "We worked with our major transfer partners, hospitals, schools, municipalities, colleges and universities to help them adjust to a 1% increase in funding, a big shift after years of increases averaging over 8% a year." He went on to say, and I quote, "We are capping their base funding for the next 2 years at the current year's level. This will continue to reduce the spending trends lines in these sectors in line with our overall strategy for managing government spending," unquote. These were the words of Ontario's NDP Finance Minister Floyd Loughran back in 1992. Wow. Ironic, isn't it, that today New Democrats oppose any government attempt to control spending, yet during their only term in government, the NDP actually cut healthcare funding through various measures.
Just unsustainable.
Our Ontario PC party campaigned in 2018 election on making life more affordable, Madam Speaker, a theme that played front and centre in the recent federal campaign. Madam Speaker, our government is helping 100,000 low-income seniors by providing them with access to publicly funded dental care. My office has already helped dozens of seniors complete their application. We're supporting children with autism by investing an additional $278 million in the province's autism programs, bringing funding up to $600 million annually.
That's incredible.
The most funding per capita anywhere in Canada.
That's wonderful.
Madam Speaker, I've had reports from parents in my riding who've been stuck on the wait list for 3 years, parents who just last week received their childhood budget checks as a result of our government doubling autism funding. We cut tuition fees by 10% this year for post-secondary students, and we're freezing tuition fees next year to keep more money in their pockets. Which brings me to the second ghost. This time, it's a ghost of budgets past. It was May 19th. On education, the finance minister said, and I quote, my colleague, the Minister of Colleges and Universities, will announce the tuition fees increase for the academic year, unquote. On the Ontario Student Loans Program, OSAP, he said that, and I quote, the program will now involve more loans than grants. As a result, its future costs will be more manageable, and this will give us the ability to help more students, unquote. These are the words of Ontario NDP Finance Minister Floyd Loughran back in 1993.
Wow.
Ironically, isn't it, that today the New Democrats oppose any government attempt to control spending, yet during their only term in government, the NDPs raised colleges and university tuition rates several times, evolved the OSAP program to give more loans than grants, and of course made life more unaffordable by raising taxes on the middle class. While the NDP raised taxes, tuition rates, and cut funding to health care and education, I'm proud, Madam Speaker, that our government has cut tuition rates by 10% in the 2019-20 academic year and froze tuition fees for the 2020-21 school year. We're putting more money back in people's pockets while protecting the services Ontario values most. Preparing people for jobs. Speaking of education, over the next 5 years, 1 in 5 jobs will be in the skilled trades, and our government has a plan to ensure today's students have the skills needed to find good jobs in Toronto's competitive global economy. Our plan includes reviewing our focus on science, technology, engineering and math, as well as the skilled trades to help prepare students for successful careers. Modernizing our skilled trades and apprenticeship system, including winding down the Ontario College of Trades and reducing the regulatory burden to help create more opportunities for apprentices and employers. As Parliamentary Assistant to the Ministry of Labour, let me tell you, the momentum is building. The changes we're making to apprenticeship systems are making a huge difference. This is all good news for people in my riding of Burlington and across Ontario. To keep communities safe, our government is working with our police to give them the tools and resources they need to put violent criminals behind bars, including investing $3.9 billion over 10 years in the justice infrastructure, including a new courthouse in Halton Region. We've also worked with the Ombudsman to propose 3 amendments to support child protection in Ontario that would, 1, allow service providers to disclose personal information to the Ombudsman to support investigation, 2, reduce the administrative burden for peace officers in child protection cases, and 3, support prosecution of child care operators in unlicensed residential settings. We're also rolling out Ontario's first ever climate change impact assessment to seek the best science and information to better understand where the province is vulnerable and which regions and economic sectors are most likely to be impacted. Madam Speaker, we need to do more to reduce waste and divert it from landfills, and public education is a key component. One of the ways our government is doing this by recognizing an official day of action on litter. The first day of action will be May 12th, 2020. In my riding of Burlington, I've implemented a free drop-off at my community office for rechargeable batteries, single-use batteries, and cell phones. So far, we have collected 150 pounds of batteries and nearly 3,000 litres of household and aerosol paints. Madam Speaker, our government is also committed to delivering simpler, faster, and better services. We're committed to building and renewing schools across Ontario to start addressing the school repair backlog that grew dramatically under the previous Liberal government. Here in Burlington, we've already received approval to tender a $15 million addition to Nelson High School and a $1 million retrofit to Frontenac Public School. Having toured Nelson School recently, this addition will provide new specialty classrooms, a new library, and support students with better learning spaces. We're improving highways, including expanding an 18-kilometre stretch of Highway 401 from Mississauga to Milton, and we're moving forward on the building a twin structure for the Garden City Skyway on the QE in St. Catharines. We're also modernizing GO Transit by moving forward with the GO Rail expansion program to provide two-way, all-day service every 15 minutes on the network's core segments. This is good news for the people of Burlington and everyone served by the Lakeshore West Line, which I'm one included in that. Finally, I want to talk about how our government's plan to build Ontario together means changing the culture of government. Inefficient and outdated processes mean the government cannot easily respond to the needs of people in a timely and cost-effective way. That's why we're looking to find ways to spend more efficiently while ensuring values for every taxpayer dollar. To help protect the services we all value, our government passed Bill 124, Protecting a Sustainable Public Sector for Future Generations Act. Bill 124 will help ensure that increases to public sector compensation reflect the fiscal situation of the province and protect the sustainability of public services.
Exactly.
Since we're talking about wages, it's important to correct the record to clarify the false claims by the NDP that our government has given lumps.
Please. I'm going to ask the member from Burlington to withdraw.
The 14% increase was actually a series of raises going back to 2016 and put in motion by the former Wynne government. Thankfully, Bill 124 limits salary increases to 1% for all employees, which brings me to my final ghost of economic statement pass. It was November 26, and in response to the Financial Minister's economic update, the chairman of the Management Board of Cabinet said, and I quote, "The government will also seek a wage freeze when bargaining with the Public Service Professionals Association," unquote. 8 months later, the Finance Minister said, and I quote, "The school sector has 180,000 teaching and non-teaching employees. In the framework covering teaching and professional staff, the parties found savings by agreeing to reduce by 4.7%, or about 6,000 fewer teachers to be hired, a major and permanent cost efficiency," unquote. It was 1992, and those were the words of the NDP Finance Minister that ushered in the social contract. Wow. Ironic, isn't it, that today New Democrats oppose any government attempt to control spending, yet during their only term in government, the NDP ripped up collective agreements, implemented a wage freeze, cut 6,000 teachers, and forced nurses, educators, and other public servants to take 12 unpaid days off every year for 3 years.
Wow.
If we look back to the only time the New Democrats had the privilege of governing this province, there were 125,000 full-time jobs lost, 1.2 million people were on social assistance, and we had the highest personal taxes in North America, and they doubled the debt, something they have in common with the Liberals. Since 2018, we've seen 271,600 net new jobs created in Ontario, and our unemployment rate is near historic lows. While I understand that the official opposition likes to impose the government on all things, they really should take a look at their record. Using the real words, back in 1993, the NDP government, and I quote, "cut program spending for 2 consecutive years, something no Ontario government has achieved for more than 50 years." Unquote. Our government's plan to build Ontario together is all about making life more affordable, preparing for people for jobs, creating a more competitive business and environment, building healthier and safer communities, and making government smarter. We're working to balance the budget while providing needed investments now in critical public services like health care and education. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for letting me speak.